and it's my pleasure to be with the webinar, basically organized by the National CSR Network on women empowerment. Basically, we are talking of rural development through self-help groups, opportunities and challenges. As we all know that Honorable Prime Minister has indicated that by 2022, the farmers' income will be doubled, and lot of policies, changes and programs have been introduced. And in the process, it has become that the secondary agriculture has become basically the primary source of income. What I mean by secondary agriculture is that the associated activities with the agriculture, which are basically in the form of micro enterprises, which largely are undertaken by the women self-help groups. Let it be whether it is beekeeping, whether it is animal rearing, goat rearing, poultry, vermicomposting, or preparing the seedlings for the nurseries, selling to the farmers, and so on and so forth. There are n number of interventions which have been taken up by the women self-help groups. If we look into the women self-help group movement, which started quite almost 2 decades back, and currently there are more than 62 lakhs SHGs, that is the self-help groups of the women operating across the country, and the largest number of women SHGs are in Bihar, and the main component of Jivika program, which has been supported by the World Bank, has created large number of women SHGs in Bihar. At the same time, if you look into the Gujarat, the Self-Employed Women's Association, SEWA, which has been working for years together, and if you visit their place, you will find that women are doing every possible job in the agriculture. Let it be driving the tractor, plowing the fields, or preparing the chili powder, or say packing the chili powder or haldi powder, and they run their own store as such. Similarly, there are n number of examples which are the serving as the lamp post for number of SHGs in the country. I'm sure many of you must have heard 2 days back about the Beena Devi, who is from Bihar, and she was awarded the Nari Shakti Puraskar Award. She is also Sarpanch of her village, and she is known as the Mushroom Lady of Bihar. She has really transformed the lives of number of families by bringing together the women for producing the mushroom and earning the livelihood for their families. As I understand, Beena Devi alone herself is able to make almost 25,000 rupees per month by selling the mushrooms which she is growing. And if you come to the south, in the Kothapalli in erstwhile Rangareddy district of Telangana state, she has transformed the village by doing micro enterprises. She started with nursery raising and vermicomposting in the women self-help group, and now she has herself a grocery store in the village, earning a decent livelihood. There is another example in Bihar, Anita Devi from Nalanda, and she is a home science graduate from Pantnagar, and she has transformed the lives of more than 100 SHGs by growing the mushroom, and at the moment she is supplying even the seeds for the mushroom cultivation in her district. So there are a number of examples like that in different sectors, For example, even in a tribal belt of Adilabad district, the village called Pawarguda, which has no power at all, and it is to be in the dark always. There, the women self-help groups working with us with International Crop Research Institute have started the generation of the power using the Pongamia seed oil. Being the indigenous people, they have the right to collect the forest produce. So they collect the seeds of Pongamia from the forest, and each family becomes the member of the group and provides the seed as the capital for their contribution. And then the group extracts the oil, and by using that oil, they run the generator and provide the electricity to all the houses in Pawarguda. And then the byproducts are sold as the manure, organic manure for the agriculture, which also becomes the source of income. And the lady who drove this change in the village is is Subhadra Bai. So there are examples like that. So we need to understand that we have a huge energy and power amongst our rural women who constitute 50% of the rural population. And we need to have opportunities to harness their efforts and put their energy in not only income generation, but also achieving the food security for the family as well as the village and the district and the state and the country. Another important advantage we get working with the women self-help groups is not only the income security or food security, but they take care of nutritional security of their families. By growing the vegetables and pulses in their kitchen garden or backyard, they are able to provide the nutritious food, fruits, vegetables to their whole family. And that's the advantage we get basically working with the women self-help groups. Now, Government of India has decided to have 10,000 more FPOs, and there are FPOs which are run by the women, like the example I told you about Seva in Gujarat, and there are other places also coming up now. So we need to have a strategy basically to empower these SHG groups to be federated into the farmer producer organizations or companies, whatever we call. And government of erstwhile Andhra Pradesh, undivided Andhra Pradesh, had done the federation of the women SHGs, starting from the SHG to the village, village to the block, and block to the district. And as an example, in the Mehboob Nagar district, if you visit the place, basically you will find that the Women Federation is running financial institution like a bank, a training institute, a highway restaurant, and also providing the processing facilities for the women self-help groups. So these are some of the examples which we need to look at as the guiding examples, that if appropriate support is given to the women self-help groups with training, empowerment, and enabling policies, making the required capital available through the loans so that they can stand on their own and then run the businesses very effectively. So I look at this particular juncture, it's a great opportunity that we have the Secretary Rural Development also with us, and we will hear from the industry as well as the government point of view, the opportunities and challenges for the self-help groups of women, basically to benefit the progress what we are looking at, the sustainable development. With that, I think I will stop here and request basically calling on the Brigadier Atul Wahiji, who is basically retired from the army and started his second innings with Welspun Group. He is running number of CSR initiatives, and with his passionate team working with the rural community under the strategic guidance of Mrs. Dipali Goenka, Joint MD of Welspun Group, as well as the Welspun Foundation. And the main topics which they handle are health and knowledge. So we can really have the excellent view, and I am sure that the National CSR Network, which brings in the convergence of the government organizations and the industries at the village level, can play a very important role in this particular initiative. Over to Brigadier Atulji.
Thank you, Dr. Suhas Mani. It's actually great, hearing from you. Distinguished guests on the panel and all my friends from across the country who joined this webinar and devoted their valuable time on such an important subject. I'm here to present my thoughts about these self-help groups purely from an industrial perspective. We at Welspun Group have been working alongside all these SHGs for the last several years across the country, especially at the location where our plants are located. Our experience of working with the self-help groups have actually given an insight to us as to what type of challenges these groups face. But at the same time, we've also understood that along with the challenges, there are numerous opportunities which we can strengthen to ensure that these groups are empowered, they are able to earn a decent livelihood, and these initiatives are sustainable in the long run. I'm honored to speak on such an important subject, which I feel is not only important from the point of view of the rural development, but I think these groups can contribute a great deal as far as the national development is concerned. Right now, what I would like to say is that, the last couple of years, all our villages, because of various reasons, because of the social media, because of other, aspects, they have been actually exposed to a lot of things, especially the villages which are co-located with the nearby towns in the cities. Right now, as Dr. Suhas has brought out, there have been different, government policies which are related to open markets. So all this, what has happened is actually that the aspirations of the rural India have increased a great deal. And along with that, various avenues have also opened up. Prime Minister's recently about the vocal for local, and Atmanirbhar Bharat has actually brought out a plethora of new markets, which Dr. Suhas has talked about. Before I go any further, I would like to give you a little bit of insight into what Welspun Group corporate social responsible initiatives are there. They're primarily enshrined into three basic principles, that is education, empowerment, environment, and health. Most of our initiatives are basically for the women, because we at Welspun sincerely and passionately believe that if a woman in the family gets empowered, the entire family gets empowered and the entire community gets empowered. So therefore, the woman gets empowered, she's not able, she doesn't only takes care of her own livelihood. She is able to take care of the education of the children. She's able to take care of the health of the family members, her own health. And because of this, she gets a rightful place in her own family, in the community as such, which indeed is very important. While interacting with the self-help groups in the villages for the last couple of years, we found, whereas the social integrity between the women is very high, the zeal and the enthusiasm to do something new and to earn a livelihood is very high. But of course, there are certain challenges. These challenges are related to the skill, related to the financial support, related physical infrastructure related to the norms and the taboos within the society. But we in Welspun feel that these can be easily taken care of by awareness and through various interventions, which I'll talk about later in my talk. In this, the role of various stakeholders, whether it is the government bodies at the apex level or the local bodies of the government, the NGOs, the corporates, is indeed very, very important. And especially it is very critical from the point of view that in this pandemic situation, it is quite likely that even the successful self-help groups may collapse unless support in terms of hand-holding is given to them. Our experience of self-help groups in the last couple of years has been truly enriching. We also understand that the agenda of the government with regard to the self-help groups is not only related to financial inclusion, but their overall objective is to ensure rural development and in turn the national development. So that being the agenda, it is important that we carry out a deep hand-holding. We are able to carry out linkages with the government schemes and the programs. And if that is done, we feel that it can be a catalyst to the social change. We also need to ensure that we are able to create self-reliance, and we are able to ensure that in the villages, the village people are able to be aware of their entitlements, their rights, and in turn, their overall standard of living improves. And we also feel that if the financial inclusion takes place, it will automatically result into social development. I've also talked about recently in my talk earlier that it is important that all these stakeholders are involved at all stages of formation of the self-help groups and right to the extent and where the exit is taking place. All of us need to share our responsibilities well and create a conducive environment for these self-help groups to grow. There is indeed a requirement of a very proactive role by the bodies like NABARD, SIDBI, and the NRLM. I think our experience in Welspun is that all this which has to be done is to be done in a very systemic manner. The hand-holding needs to be done right from the inception stage. So as you are aware, the initial stages, the self-help groups are formed with a co-interest of all the ladies in the villages. It may be turning out to be 10 to 12 to 15 to 20 women. We need to carry out a detailed need analysis as to what needs to be done. Then after that comes the next aspect of awareness. There is a requirement of linkage with the markets. There is a requirement to link with the banks to get the funding. And at the end, we also need to have a detailed exit plan and ensure that these self-help groups are sustainable in the long term. So therefore, accessibility of funds to the these self-help groups is indeed very important. So what may happen is that we find, because of the illiteracy level, it is difficult for these self-help groups to approach the banking system or to approach the organization for the microfinance. That is where the NGOs and the corporates can pitch in, to act as facilitators to ensure that these self-help groups are able to get the access to the funds. And somewhere, if these are not coming forth and the schemes are such where more funding is required, I think the corporates can also pitch in and help and support these self-help groups with the availability of funds through their CSR programs. But all this, I'm not trying to say that there is no responsibility of these groups as such. I think they are the primary drivers of the schemes. Their interest, because they have started the initiatives, with those initiatives which are of common interest, they need to come out of the social taboos. They need to come out of gender-biased discrimination. They have to come out of the various local politics at the panchayat level and the local bodies which is taking place. But for all this, it is important that we do the hand-holding, we make them aware and make sure that all these stakeholders are taken along so that these self-help groups are confident and take their ventures to the next level. Another important aspect is that we found that while at the initial stages, A lot of planning is done. The funding is available. These women open their enterprise. As long as the corporates and the self-help groups and the government is available to do the handholding. But sometimes these bodies have to exit. So we found that when the exit takes place, somehow because of various reasons, the self-help groups, they just collapse. So this is not the right thing because they have to make it sustainable. So we understand in Welspun that we have to prepare a proper exit plan, which may run into a period of time, and ensure when exit is made, these groups still remain sustainable, which indeed from our point of view is very, very important. Another aspect which is very important from the point of view of sustainability is the market linkage. So whatever ventures you have, whether you're making vermicompost or you're making fertilizer or whatever, so all this will have to have a market linkage. Especially it is important in the remote areas where there is lack of infrastructure and these women are not able to sell their produce. So that linkage has to be planned very well, and this linkage has to be sustainable. I feel the Welspun feels as such that these self-help groups can become drivers for the national economy, Make in India initiative, and of course contribute to the gross domestic product. We also feel that at the village level or the rural community is concerned, there is a feeling that once the corporates or the NGOs or the government pitches in, there is a sort of an over dependence, and they try and see that these people should continue to fund us, these people should continue to make us aware, help us, support us all the time, which I think is not a very good thing. We have to make them aware that they need to become self-reliant. Our approach to Welspun towards inclusive growth is really helping us to create that kind of awareness and to make sure that sustainability is achieved. We also find, while at the strategic level, the government initiatives are quite positive and progressive, but at the implementation stage, at the grassroots level, we find that there definitely needs to have some improvement and a change in mindset. There are, of course, gaps as far as the banking infrastructure is concerned and the self-help group is concerned. That gaps needs to be, narrowed down. Complex banking system is there, needs to, change so that these ladies who are not, that much literate are able to, get access to the funds. We also found that, because of the complexities of the banking system, there is a, a requirement of these self-help groups are actually approaching for microfinance because those processes are much simpler. But whatever they get out of the microfinance is not sufficient to, make these enterprises sustainable. So therefore, it is definitely needed that, total, requirement of the accessibility of the funds is made available. There is need to have a easy accessibility, financial accountability, moral responsibility, and a very strong implementation. Another thing which we have found while interacting with the self-help group is there are certain internal dynamics of these self-help groups. This needs to improve. Firstly, as well as their literacy level is concerned, with regard to the bookkeeping, accounts, utilization of saving, we need to make them aware. We need to, interact with them and make sure that, they are aware of this thing and they are able to drive this themselves. We also find that there are trust issues. But what we have found is that these are at the initial stages, and subsequently, when they start earning, the trust issues diminish. Of course, there are issues in the rural community. In some of the areas, there is a caste-in-caste system, gender bias. I think those can be mitigated very well through awareness, involvement of all stakeholders, and in the end, creation of goodwill. We feel that in case all these stakeholders take on their responsibility, it is possible to meet all the challenges. I would like to tell you that one of the stories I would like to give you, a successful story as far as the Welspun is concerned. This is just one of the stories which I want to apprise you about. I don't want to say that we have been fully successful in all our interactions and all our endeavors which we have taken with regard to the self-help groups. But we've understood, what are the challenges. We've learned our lessons, and all our future initiatives are based on those lessons learned. This is one of the initiatives we, did in one of the villages, which is very close to our plant, village Varsamedi. In fact, it was selected as one of the model villages very recently. So what we did was, all the aspects which I brought out earlier, we implemented that. Firstly, as far as the involvement of all the stakeholders is concerned, we started with the village panchayat as such. We talked to them, made aware, made them understand as to why these initiatives are, important, and why should we do that as far as their village is concerned. So once we took the okay from the village, sarpanch and the panchayat, then our very passionate CSR team went from door to door, talking to not only the women, talking to the children, talking to the husbands, which is indeed very important, because we wanted the women to come out. So what we did was, because of this, actually we wanted to establish a tailoring unit in the village. So initially, 8 to 10 women came forward, and therefore there was all a lot of resistance to that, but they come out. The panchayat was very collaborative. They helped us with the building, they helped us with the electricity, they helped us with the water. All this was given by the village, and we just modified that building into something improve that infrastructure over there. The government came forward through their NRLM scheme. They provided us the machines, the equipment, and actually this was done very fast. And of course, the training was provided by our team from Welspun, and all this resulted to ensure that within 2 to 3 months of our initiative of the endeavor starting, we were able to inaugurate this facility, and all 8 to 10 women, they came there. We started training them. Initially, while we were training them, of course, because they don't want, we didn't want that they go home without earning anything. In fact, we provided certain incentive to them so that, they are motivated to come and work. We were surprised that within 1 or 2 months, they learned very fast. They learned all aspects of quality stitching, because all our items are going, they are to be exported. So they were very fast in learning. And very soon, they started earning 2,000 to 3,000 rupees a month. And after that, the message spread very fast to all around the village. And more of women, they came to our center that, yes, we wanted to be, enrolled in the center. We want to also earn. And there was a waiting list for that. Of course, this particular center, starting with 8 to 10 women, we had about 50 to 60 women in that center. And we spread this to about 6 to 7 villages. And now at least 250 women have been embarked. And the present average on an average is 10,000 rupees. And some of the women, they have earned 30,000. They are earning more than 30,000 rupees. And it is just for the livelihood they have earned. They have been empowered in the true sense. They are empowered so much that we've done a statistics and we found that some of the women, they have, earned income for their own wedding, for their own marriage, and contribute total expenditure from their own earnings. Some of them, have bought a house, helped their, husbands to, buy a house or renovate their house. Some of them, have provided better education to the children. And because of that, the kind of respect which they have got in their own family and in the, the village as such, has been tremendous. And because of that, the dynamics in the village has changed. I mean, the way the village thinks, the women should come out, absolutely they changed. Initially, we found that the women were not, ready even to come to the plant, to work there and, work alongside men. This particular initiative changed the entire thing. So all these women who were able to come to the plant, who did not have, small children, they started coming to the plant. And now in our plant, we have got 2,000 to 3,000, women who are working there. So with this story, I just wanted to say is that if a proper planning is done, then of course, the self-help groups, they will meet their ultimate objective. So this is very important. Also now coming on to the sustainability. Of course, this is an issue. So what we did was that all the women who are working with us, we decided that we will make them self-reliant. We taught them, how we do the accounting. Some of the women, who were little more literate, we trained them. They were able to get all the raw material from the plant, account for it, get the stitching done, do the quality control, do all the accounting, and they do all these dispatch formalities. And then at the end of it, based on the piece rate, they were able to make payments to the women who had worked there. Of course, initially we started with our own manpower, in those, centers, trying to monitor and, trying to help them. And slowly this monitoring has almost stopped. And now we're in a state that even if we leave, we're very confident that these women will continue to work and earn the same kind of livelihood. So therefore, we feel that they were empowered to the true sense. So this is, just I want to talk about. And I also want to say, in the end, that if all stakeholders take on their role and responsibility, the corporates, the NGOs, the government, the local bodies, we make proper need analysis, make a proper program, carry out a proper market linkage, and have a proper exit, I think we'll be able to achieve the overall objective of sustainable livelihood, which in turn would definitely add to the rural development. These women, will also start contribute to the, national economy and the GDP, and our great country will, of course, become a better country. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Brigadier Wahi, and very aptly you said the challenges and the opportunities operating the women self-help groups and described the successful example also. Now we will have Dr. Raju Kandpal, who is the Joint Secretary as well as the Chief Financial Officer at GEM. He has worked in the state of Uttarakhand. He is alumnus of the IIT Roorkee, and by training he is MTech engineer, but also has done PhD in public policy. So I am sure that we will have a nice convergence of technology and the policies for empowering the women self-help groups. Dr. Raju ji.
Distinguished guests on the panel, Shri N.N. Sinha, Secretary, Department of Rural Development, and Dr. Suhas Vani, Brigadier Wahi, colleagues from National NCR Network, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this honor and for inviting me over. I was just listening a short while ago, some really inspiring stories from Brigadier Wahi about the kind of fruitful results that working with SHGs in the rural sector can deliver. And I think it would be very opportune if I could today share some of the work that Government e-Marketplace as an online portal has done, is trying to achieve to collaborating with Department of Rural Development and trying to work with SHGs so that they can also sell online. So these are some of the recent initiatives of GEM which we have done, and as I'm sure as all of you would know, Government e-Marketplace, GEM, is a one-stop online procurement portal for all government buyers, including central, state ministries, departments, PSUs. It was launched in August 2016, and the purpose was to enhance the efficiency, transparency, inclusiveness in public procurement. So the mandate that GEM gets from is the General Financial Rules, so-called, so to say, the procuring guidelines of the Government of India, which are known as the General Financial Rules. And Rule 149 of the General Financial Rules provides that all procurement of goods and service by ministries or departments of Government of India shall have to be done from the Government e-Marketplace. So that is where we derive our mandate from. And accordingly, GEM has operationalized on the portal various rules of bidding, various tools, and we presently provide a number of tools of procurement such as, say, e-bidding, reverse auction, direct procurement to facilitate government users achieve the best value for their money. How this work relating to self-help groups is important is that social inclusion is one of the core values at GEM. And GEM is presently focusing on increased participation from niche seller segments such as, say, women entrepreneurs, self-help groups, artisans, weavers, and micro entrepreneurs who would otherwise face great challenges in selling to the government departments. And accordingly, we have launched a number of social initiatives on GEM. Some of them I would just like to recount here, which is a microsite within GEM, which is completely dedicated to women entrepreneurs. We have a startup runway for startups. We have the Saras collection, which I'm going to talk about today. And we also have a beautiful Tribes India store, which is the products made by various beautiful products made by various tribes of India, rich heritage of our country, which is available online. The products are available online, and one can go there, any government user, and he can buy. So regarding the Saras collection, the microsite within GEM has been inaugurated on the 4th of May by Honorable Union Minister for Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Rural Development and Panchayati Raj, Shri Narendra Tomar ji. So we are calling it the Saras collection, and it is a unique initiative of GEM and the National Rural Livelihoods Mission. The collection showcases daily utility products made by rural self-help groups and aims to provide SHGs in rural areas and government buyers and self-help group sellers to enlist their products in 5 exclusive categories, which are handicrafts, handlooms, textiles, office accessories, grocery and pantry, and personal care and hygiene. And SHGs, apart from these exclusive categories, they are also free to list their products anywhere on the regular marketplace also. So the idea for the Saras collection on GEM emerged during a brainstorming session with my esteemed colleagues from the Ministry of Rural Development, wherein because they have extensive experience of working with such self-help groups, the idea was that we should create a marketplace which gives an opportunity to such self-help groups. And when I'm talking about self-help groups, perhaps I'm talking about the most remotest self-help groups who have very little competency, skill sets to operate online, to sell their products online. So that was the challenging deliverable that we set for ourselves. And the challenge basically was to design a standard operating process which could, while being very simple, because the users of the software here would be savviness, so to say. And at the same time, while being very simple, the process should be robust enough so that it can cover the diversity of the entire nation. Because we had planned that all SHGs of all the states should eventually be on government marketplace, and they should be able to sell. So with this in mind, we started making the blueprints, and we designed a process which provided a 2-step kind of a seller registration workflow. So whereas the self-help groups, the Department of Rural Development, they provided us the data regarding to the self-help groups, and we enabled this data from the backend. And with the help of this data, self-help groups were encouraged, motivated, they were facilitated so that they could find GEM as a primary seller. It was also realized that just making them primary sellers is not going to really help the project, because they would need a lot of hand holding here. So it was in this context that officials, that the cutting edge level officials of the National Rural Livelihood Mission, which is a mission under the Department of Rural Development, they were giving the secondary seller on the platform. So whereas the SHGs would be the primary sellers, the officials, the functionaries of the state rural livelihood missions, the block mission managers, they would be the secondary sellers, and they would help the startups, the SHGs with onboarding, with various little tasks like say onboarding of the product, providing the image of the product on the portal, inventory management, tying up with logistic partners. So these were the challenge, and the functionaries of the SRLM program, they really came up to the responsibility. And it is wonderful to see the collection today. We have about 1,272 self-help groups who are registered on the platform. About 1,900 such products are available on the platform. The onboarding of the self-help groups was initially piloted in 10 states. We wanted to do a pilot and make sure that we have covered for every eventuality, and subsequently we have expanded it to all the states, union territories. And under this collect view, they can cart the products and procure such SHG products through the stipulated modes of procurement as is mandated by the general financial rules. GEM on its part, whereas some of the key responsibilities here have been developed, the whole process has been developed by GEM. The key responsibilities have been entrusted, as I said, to the block mission managers to help further the block mission managers as well as the self-help groups. GEM is developing online learning resources. We are arranging training programs to assist the self-help groups and the block mission managers, because we think that a key component of this program, which will contribute to the success of this program, is going to be the capacity building component. And government buyers are also being sensitized through web banners, through product brochures, assets now available on GEM. So I think the key advantage, the key benefits and the advantages which flow from the program, just concluding my talk, I would say that this is one initiative which is providing SHGs with direct access to government buyers, which is a great thing in itself. And this service collection will also do away with intermediaries in the supply chain. And I think that will help provide SHGs with direct access to government markets and buyers. It will ensure better product prices. And also, maybe if we can take it, really scale it up, it will create great opportunities of hyper-local job creation in rural India. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajiv ji, and excellent opportunity what you have indicated for the women self-help groups, providing the direct market linkages through the SRL platform. And definitely, I am sure that many of the participants will be glad to look at the web and get in touch with the ministry for doing their registrations and taking the product from 1900 to more to reach to the other beneficiaries of the SHGs also. Thank you very much. Now I will request our Honorable Secretary, Dr. Nagendranath Sinha, who is the Secretary of Department of Rural Development and has also served as the Managing Director of the National Highways and Infrastructure Development Corporation. Before that, he has served as the Additional Chief Secretary Rural Development in the government of Jharkhand. He has played a very important role in organizing the rural poor, creating the sustainable livelihoods for them, and also the employment opportunities largely based on the natural resource management. So his forte of specialization is natural resource management, use of IT technologies for sustainable development, and also institution building, which is very, very critical, as we were listening earlier from Brigadier Wahi, as well as Dr. Rajiv, that capacity building and institutionalization of the process plays an important role in success of the SHG movement. So over to Honorable Secretary Nagendra ji.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak on this important issue of how do we bring CSR to help and work with these self-help groups for their overall development. And many speakers before me have noted the kind of role that the development of women plays for the national development and for the important goals that Honorable Prime Minister has espoused during his tenure through his different initiatives, for example, the Atmanirbhar Bharat and various other developmental goals and initiatives that he has promoted. So I will divide my talk into 5 sections. The first section would be the kind of spread that the self-help groups promoted by the Rural Development Ministry covers. The second segment of this would be to highlight their importance and their role in the area of the COVID management of the nation. Then I would talk about the livelihood portfolio that they hold. And then with regard to the benefits that have accrued to people as a whole, and how does it relate to the sustainable development goals set up by the United Nations, and then how do the CSR can play a role in the development of the rural women through supporting the SDGs. So let me address the first segment. I would like to take you to the socioeconomic caste census of 2011. And as you would be aware, this census was conducted after the national census of 2011, and it took the house listing operation data from there, and then it had various questions relating to socioeconomic status as well as the caste of those members. Caste aspect was never processed because of certain decisions. However, the socioeconomic profile of the household has come out very clearly, and it has become a basis for delivering various benefits, particularly of the central programs, for example, Mahatma Gandhi Narega, for example, the National Rural Livelihood Mission, Jan Arogya scheme, and various other developmental schemes of the government of India, and many other state governments have also adopted it. So this SECC found out that about 18 crore households were there, out of which it excluded people having certain kind of assets or having a certain kind of job, particularly those having government jobs or paying income tax or having four-wheelers or having a telephone, and there were 13 kind of such criteria. So if you exclude these people, then about 7 lakh such households were included. There were about 16 lakh households which were automatically included for benefits under the government programs, and then there were several people who on various deprivation criteria were enumerated, out of which majority were the agriculture households getting income from the agriculture. So if you take the automatically included as well as the household which are considered deprived, so this covers around 10.9 crores such households. Against that, if you take the SHGs promoted by the Rural Development Ministry itself, the total number is around 7 crore women who have been involved into different programs, different SHGs. If you take the NABARD data, it's almost 12 crores. NABARD data also covers the urban SHGs as well as SHGs which have been promoted into rural areas, but because they became inactive and therefore the NRL also had to kind of rejuvenate the SHG, and therefore the actual number may in the rural areas may be somewhere around 8 to 8.5. So if you see these two, you'll see a large number of women have been enrolled into the SHGs. Why I am mentioning this is because of a remark by previous speaker, Brigadier Atul Wahi, who mentioned that one of the tasks that their company had to take up was to organize women into the self-help groups and thereafter do the entire mobilization process, take up their financial inclusion and bank linkage aspect, then promoting them into different livelihood activities. So, with this background, you would have understood that the platform is largely ready, and the challenge before us is how do we make sure that the women brought under this platform are kind of provided the necessary support to improve their socio-economic profile. This platform is very useful. They have contributed very significantly to the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin. They are contributing very significantly to the National Nutrition Mission, which is called Rashtriya Poshan Abhiyan. And there are several other areas where women are contributing a lot. I would like to take you to the very successful mission in Kerala called Kudumsri, where the women run the geriatric care, they manufacture Nutrimix, they have a milk producer company, they run various cafes into government offices, hospitals, and various other places. They played a very important role in 2018 floods in Kerala. They run E-Seva Kendra and do also construction. So if the women's self-help groups are mobilized properly, they can take up a large amount of work in various areas of public activity and the productive activities. Now I would like to come to the role that they played in the COVID pandemic management. So although we gave some advisories, but largely these women, the women in the SHGs, out of their own volition, out of their own enthusiasm to cooperate and participate in the process of the COVID management, around 3 lakh SHGs produce around 24 crore masks. They produce around 5 lakh liters of sanitizers, around 1 lakh liter of hand wash. They ran around 10,750 odd community kitchens, and which fed around 5.7 crores persons. One of the interventions that was quite innovative, and in fact it gives us a pointer to their productive potential. So the SHGs organized themselves together, and they supplied around 12,300 metric ton of fruits and vegetables to people under lockdown. One of the another important service that they provided was disbursement of cash through the bank sakhis in different parts of the country. Around 8,000 such bank sakhis conducted around 1 crore such transaction and distributed around 23 129 crores of gas in remotest parts of the country. So you can understand that even during these difficult circumstances, many of the banks were non-functional, distributed and made liquidity available into the rural areas. And this platform itself made aware around 5.35 crore women in around 3.4 crore, 3.4 lakh villages about the risks of COVID and how they should organize themselves, what precautions they should observe so that they and their communities are protected against the COVID pandemic. So you will appreciate the vast amount of work that the women are doing. So it then becomes our duty to kind of help them to make sure that their productive potentials are realized. I read somewhere a very good quote. Somebody was mentioning that not in this conversation, but elsewhere, that there is a talent shortage, and the observation of the writer who commented upon this said that if you are only looking at half of the humanity, then obviously you will have a situation of talent shortage. So if you also start looking at the other half, then the apparent shortage would not be a shortage at all. The role that women play in various securities was mentioned by Dr. Suhas Wani, nutritional security, food security, income security. If you see the corporate social responsibility related Schedule 7 of the Companies Act, you will see many of these are related to the social sustainable development goals of the United Nations. For example, eradicating hunger and poverty, gender equality, and these are directly related to the efforts that the entire nation is doing through the SHG platforms. Now, having delved into these aspects, now let me come to the livelihood portfolios, because this is one area where the corporates having their predominant activities in the area of the economic enterprise and economic activities may find themselves most comfortable. So around 86 lakh women out of 7 crore women are organized into farm interventions, agri and allied interventions. It largely consists of integrated farming systems, around 33 lakhs, and some of it might be overlapping with the integrated farming system interventions. Is engaged in the agri-nutri garden kind of activity, which provides not only production for sale to the market, but also nutritional support to the families. Around 86,000 women are organized into various producer groups. There are around 133 farmer producer organizations, and similarly, around 56,000 women are organized for organic kind of production activity. Yet the challenge is that there are about only 7 such women are organized into various livelihood groups. One of the learnings that the Rural Development Ministry and other ministries have, that until unless a poor household whose income earning from the bigger land holding that household has, high precarious, and there's always ever present risk of that family slipping into the poverty. So in order to kind of make the household's income and status resilient against the various shocks that family repeatedly and periodically experiences in modern environment, it is important to have multiple sources of livelihood, and therefore apart from the current livelihoods, which may consist of one or more livelihoods, we need to make sure that the family picks up multiple livelihoods, and here the role of the government as well as the corporates come into very sharp. Uh, so let me spend some time on the kind of possible role that a corporate could have. Uh, uh, let's first organize our thoughts into three blocks. The first block is the kind of production. And production, there is of course the potential for increasing the production by having a better agronomical practice, more better inputs, good irrigation facility, and all of that. Yet there is also this issue that the production is there, and we are aware that because of post-harvest facilities, a lack of post-harvest facilities, 20 to 30% production is lost. So these lost production were obviously destined for market, yet for lack of timely market interventions, they couldn't be sold into market, and the producer lost out. So the support to the production ag component is largely there. Some support here or there would certainly take them up. Then there is this issue of aggregation and some amount of target processing. So this is the second block after the production. There is a lot of organization to do because the farmers is used to handling it individually with the trader or aggregator or any other kind of intermediary. But if you want to increase the value in the value chain of produce, then it becomes very important for us to ensure that the farmer gets the terms of trade vis-a-vis market better and more even. And how do we do that? We organize the farmers into groups. You may call farmer producer organization, you may call producer enterprises, you may call anything else cooperative. But once the producer get organized into collectives, then their terms vis-a-vis the market and the upper tiers in the value chain improves, and more value out of it gets realized. We also find and deem it as beneficial because once they are able to aggregate themselves, they are able to seek the support of the various schemes of the government which have been recently announced. For example, the scheme of the government to form 10,000 farmer producer organizations, or 1 lakh crore agriculture infrastructure fund, or 15,000 crore the Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Fund or the Prime Minister Matsya Sampada Yojana. And there are n number of such new initiatives which have been launched very recently under the Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar initiative. So there, in this sphere, the role of the corporate becomes very high, because once they are there, because of their familiarity with the economics of markets and their ability to distribute, organize their value chain and supply chains, they can support such groups into organizing their supply chain, interfacing with the markets, accessing bank credit, getting access to better technology. So these are some of the areas vis-a-vis at the second tier which the corporates can provide, apart from the CSR support. I mean, this is not a CSR in the literal sense of the term, but because you are not spending cash directly, but you are utilizing the skill of your manpower, skill of your companies to help the women organize themselves better, have more collective strength. So these and thereby greater part of the value in the value chain. Then organizing vis-a-vis the third tier is another area in which the corporates can play a role. Again, it's a non-financial kind of a role that they can play because of their deep linkage with the markets and their familiarity with the other economies in operating into the market. They can, for the various produce of the farm producer organizations or similar collectives, can help these groups find markets for their produce, and which could be produced per se, sorted and graded, or processed to some extent to fetch better value. So this is another area of support which I feel could be there. Then another area could be the services to corporates. I had mentioned that these women run canteens. By the way, the Kudumsri women run the Kochi Metro. So you can understand the kind of technical expertise that these women can bring out if properly trained and oriented. They could run, they could provide cafe services, they could provide cleaning services, they could provide other hospitality related services for the various units and various organizations of the corporates per se, which they themselves are doing. And I would be very happy to tell you that recently the Ministry of HRD and Ministry of Tribal Affairs have agreed for the SHGs to provide these kind of supports for their Navodaya Vidyalayas and the Eklavya model residential schools. So there is no reason why they cannot provide these kind of services for the corporates as well. The corporates could themselves also introduce the SHG groups and their higher level collectives to their vendors and their networks. They could also take them as vendors and service providers. And this is in addition to what the corporate can themselves do as part of the CSR network. And I'm mentioning this not to do everything on their own, but to supplement the efforts of these women, the support that they are getting from the government or banks to help them access these supports in a better and a more efficient manner, besides supplementing their this support that they are getting from other sources of support. So that takes care of the exit strategy that Brigadier Wahi spoke about. Once you deal with a well-organized collective, which is functioning well, and which, because of the NRLM efforts, have been organized in a very large number of villages and districts of the country. Therefore, there is a ready platform, and I invite all the corporates who are listening to the address today and through the National CSR Network to be spread among other networks to kind of work together, work with the SHG platforms, Women Collective platform brought about by the Ministry of Rural Development, NABARD, and other agencies to supplement the effort of women for their better future, for their more sustainable future, for their future which has greater economic and social security. The only thing that I believe is very necessary, that you have to deal with them on a platform, on a level, on a basis of mutual respect. And once you do that, I'm sure this respect and this trust would be reciprocated as we do. Today, I recall one incident which happened just yesterday. This kind of displays the social empowerment that can be brought about by the women. Once you free them, once you free them from kind of patriarchy our groups are involved in, and give more agency and more power to women. This happened in the district of Gumla. A woman was branded as witch, as usually happens in those parts of the country, which was disrobed of her clothes, beaten, paraded naked. When the other members of the network came to know, they organized a demonstration, masked them in large number of people to the house. They provided saris, garlanded women, apologized on the behalf of others who perpetrated, and then the people who had done this recognized their folly, and then they begged excuse for the misdeed that they had done. And nobody from the NGOs or government machinery had mobilized them for doing this. On their own, because of the agencies latent into them, which we had been able to, the NRLM program had been able to ignite, they took this kind of a step, which not only was a statement, was restored the dignity of that woman, but also kind of displayed the change in attitude that has taken place because of the programs of women development. And I think this is a national goal, because we are liberating the latent energy of half of the humankind. And therefore, it should, as if we want to see our nation as a developed nation, we must make sure that the energies of our half of the gets liberated, and they are utilized for the productive works that need to be done for making our nation Atmanirbhar nation for getting us into $5 trillion economy and the kind of all-round development that we should see. Thank you very much for providing me this opportunity of addressing on this very important topic. And I'm sure this of organization and this kind of event, the issue of rising and working with the SHGs for the national development far and wide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary Sir, for providing us the good statistics as well as also the new role what women have played during the COVID pandemic. And it clearly shows that if we have the empowered women SHGs in the rural areas, that is going to be a biggest institute for all of us to rely on during the national disasters or natural disasters, whatever comes through, whether it is flooding or diseases like this or other things at the grassroots level. So thank you very much, sir. And there is one question coming up that when we have heard the industry as well as the government perspective and the academic perspective about the empowerment of the women or the SHGs and what are the challenges, as we see that there are a lot of things which need to be done in a country like in India, because we have excellent examples of what to do, but when it comes to how to do on a large scale, then there are a lot of gaps which come up. Do you think, my question, this question has come up from both of you, Secretary Sir, as well as the Joint Secretary Sir, that a organization like National CSR Network, can it play a catalytic role between bringing the NGOs, corporates, and the government schemes together, as Brigadier Wahi was indicating that integration of the women groups with the government schemes is an important aspect for their sustainability. Secretary Sir.
So I think it's important for us to realize that there is an existing platform, and this platform has already developed the institutional structure. So it would be better in the national interest from the economic perspective as well as to save ourselves the time of organizing the women into groups and thereby spending time and the results, the difficulty in seeing the results of our initiatives into a short period of time, fructifying over a short period of time. Therefore, I would encourage that the platform that exists should be utilized by the corporates. I mentioned there are areas in which the corporates can certainly play a role, and some of them are financial areas of support, but there are areas in which the corporates, because of its networks, because of its the way it's organized and their insights into the markets, can certainly play a very important role in helping the SHGs secure better livelihood and better incomes for themselves.
Thank you very much, sir. Because as I understand, a lot of corporates are doing excellent work into their own areas around the factories and other things. For example, as I know very well, the JSW Foundation has really enhanced the skill of more than 5,000 women around their factories. They run the rural BPOs the girls who have 12th standard pass and all, and also through the GSW Shakti program, all the girls or the women above 18 years of age are skilled to get the appropriate opportunity, employment opportunity. So what I was really looking at, can the existing schemes of the government and the corporates, what they are doing, and the NGOs which are playing the critical role in hand holding, like NABARD, what is supporting the NGOs, is there a way where something like that can be put together so that we have a multiplier effect rather than the additional effect?
So, one has to probably understand that and take into cognizance the fact that the institutional structures exist.
Yeah.
So you take those institutions as they exist, and then have a dialogue with them and find out which are the area of gaps that the community recognizes, and maybe help them appreciate and discover as to what their actual needs could be and how they could secure a better future for themselves. I think the most important thing for a corporate is not only to contribute to it financially, but also use its talented HR, talented manpower that it has, and the insights into economic networks that it has, to weave a better future for the women. So I think the government programs provide a lot of support. It's the but because these programs are kind of designed with a very large audience in mind, the corporates can help the programs to individualize and to cater to the specific needs for the women in a particular area. And since the support that the corporates can provide financially is also limited by their own budget. So if they cooperate with the government, then the area over which and the number of beneficiaries that they can support becomes to that extent larger, and therefore the impact is also seen over a long
Higher one. Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Rajivji, what is your opinion?
Of course, Secretary Sir has given a much larger perspective, and I would like to speak here as to how we at GEM feel that the useful, the very fruitful role that organizations like, say, the NCN can play. One of the conscious strategies of GEM has been to engage active players, active associations, networks at the rural level, because we realize that if we have to onboard on a mass scale at an exponential growth rate, I think organizations like NCN who work on similar providing livelihoods, they are very relevant to our strategy. And in this context, I would say that GEM at least is looking for such active people, active associations, active organizations who have a network, who are already partnering with SHGs, with women entrepreneurs, especially in the remote and the rural parts of the country.
Thank you very much, Rajivji. Brigadier Wahi, based on your experience, what do you think that really corporates can add the multiplier effect to the government schemes? What we are seeing from the government every alternate day or week, we find that there is a lot of things which have been coming up for doubling the farmers' income. And as we know that farmers' income, only 30-35% comes from the crop, and another 30-35% comes from the allied sectors, where the women play a very important role. So what do you see the opportunity for this sort of thing where CSR can join the hands with the government?
Frankly, I'm totally in agreement with the aspect brought out by the secretary and the joint secretary. My personal view, and as Welspun Group, the view is that the government can, have policies, they can have initiatives, all of us at the ground level have to, think about it with a positive mindset. Firstly, I would just like to clarify our thinking about the, empowerment. When we are thinking about empowerment, it's just not livelihood, right? We as corporates have to look at it from various aspects. Like, for example, education, right? So if we work on education, whether it is adolescent girls or the boys or, so then definitely the women, get empowered right from getting the education. Second is a basic thought, what we have, seen on the ground at the rural community is that the women health is also a very, very important aspect. So we need to empower women, not only from the point of view of livelihood, we have to empower them for other aspects. Second thing which I feel is, I'll just give you an example of what you asked from the agriculture sector. We have taken on an initiative which is called a Better Cotton Initiative. So basically what we are doing is at the ground level, we are training the farmers, especially in those areas where the cotton growing is happening. We are training them to, produce better cotton with a better, other, qualifying criteria for the cotton. So that is working, not only training, we are giving them, examples of how it is to be grown. We improving the yields in those areas. So that is one aspect we are taking. Second thing, what I was thinking was that we at the ground level have not found any difficulty. So we, the local bodies of the government and all that, if we, talk to them, if we, really approach them, they have been forthcoming and to help us on and, facilitate the access to the funds, facilitate other, aspect this thing. What I think one can be doing is that the way forward, I think it can be done is, can we have at, district level and all that, one single, SPOC, single point of contact from the government sides. Now we are, going, forward with the e-platform and all that, where, all the industries which are going, because different industries are doing different things. So in each of the, at least in the industrial belt, if you have a single point of contact from the government side, with whom we can interact at the corporates, where all of us are brought together and we support different things. Like the secretary brought out this aspect of, how can we, provide the market, the corporates are, doing certain things. So that those aspects, we all bring it to the common platform. Because one thing is for sure, if we are just thinking about 10, 12, 1 SG, second SG, all of the SSGs have to be brought together. It has to have a multiplier effect, right? So if number of SSGs get together, they form a cooperative, and then there'll be something, which will be a fruitful enterprise. So I think if it's possible at the government level to provide a single point of contact, where whether it is a micro enterprise is concerned, micro funding is concerned, banking, this thing is concerned, other, procedures in the, as far as the registration of this thing is concerned, then I think all the industries and all the corporates can be brought together as a single platform. That is what my thought is.
Thank you very much, Brigadier Wahi. I am sure that we had an excellent panel discussion on basically the role of women SHGs in rural development. We have heard the good examples, the opportunities, and also some of the challenges we are facing in. And it was a very rich session. I thank Secretary Rural Development, Sir, Mr. Nagendra Nathji, as well as the Joint Secretary, Dr. Raju Kantpal, and also Brigadier Wahi on my own behalf.